The documentation gives the complete information about the program. That means what are the logic you have written, what are the variables you have used. Why I need to update my WhatsApp here? Because each time the version of the WhatsApp is going to change. If I consider any programming language, I'm going to have only 3 programming constructs. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session. I'm Revati, Faculty, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. Today we are on the 6th session of 5th chapter, and the chapter name here is Problem Solving Methodology. In my today's session, at the beginning, I'm going to deal with documentation and maintenance. Then I'm going to deal with the 2 types of document, that is internal document as well as external document. Then I'm going to deal with what is maintenance. Along with that, I'm going to discuss what are the programming constructs we are going to have. In that, I'm going to discuss the different types of programming constructs, that is sequential construct. Under sequential construct, I'm going to explain what is input statement and how to write the assignment statement. Along with that, I'm going to deal output statement. These are the certain topics I'm going to discuss in my today's session. Before going to start my today's session, let me to recall the things what I had discussed in my last session. So in my previous session, I started with advantages of flowchart. That means, suppose if I'm going to use flowchart in my programming, then what are the benefits I'm going to have? Along with that, the certain disadvantages of flowchart. Along with that, we had discussion regarding what is pseudocode and how to write the pseudocode. Along with that, we had discussion regarding what is coding and how to start the coding. So here coding is nothing but the programming. Along with that, we had discussion regarding what is testing and what is debugging. Along with that, we had discussion regarding the different types of errors. So here error is nothing but the bugs, where I'm going to get the error during debugging. So during debugging, I'm going to have 4 different kinds of errors, that is syntax error, runtime error, semantic error and logical error. These are the 4 different types of errors I'm going to get during the execution of the program. Moving further, in my today's session, I'm going to deal with what is documentation and what is maintenance. So dear student, I just want to ask only one question, that is, along with my video, if you get the notes related to my video, how you're going to feel? I hope all are happy, right? Because you got the video. Along with that, you got study material to study. Similar way, in documentation, here documentation is nothing but the reference material, or it is a material mainly used to refer the program. So here documentation is a reference material which explains the use and maintenance of the program. That means the documentation gives the complete information about the program. That means what are the logic you have written, what are the variables you have used, how the program is going to work everything. So it is going to give pin to pin idea about the program. So here documentation is nothing but the referential material which is mainly used to explain the use and maintenance of the program application for which it has been written. That means the documentation gives the complete overview of the program. That means which kind of application, where it is being used, what are the constants are used, how the logics are written, what kind of logic, every informations are covered under documentation. So there are two types of documentation we are going to have, that is internal documentation and external documentation. For example, consider that I want to add two numbers. So suppose if I want to add two numbers, what are the things I required here? I required input variable. I want to perform certain calculation. At the same time, I'm going to display the output. So suppose if I want to write the algorithm, what is the step I'm going to have here? That is step 1. It is start. Then what is my next step? That is step 2. I'm going to read A and B value. Then what is my third step? That is step 3. I'm going to find the sum. So A, that is C equal to A plus B. After that, what I'm going to do? In my step 4, I'm going to print C, that is sum. And what is my next step? That is step 5. I'm going to end my algorithm. So this is the way I can able to write the algorithm. So now I want to convert this algorithm into flowchart. How I can able to write? That is once again start. Oval is used to represent start symbol. Then I'm going to have parallelogram, that is read A, B. Then find the calculation, that is rectangle C equal to A plus B. Then display the output, that is print C and stop my algorithm. So this is the way I can able to represent flowchart. Now I want to convert my flowchart into program. Then how I'm going to write my program? So how I'm going to write here? That is initially what I'm going to have. I want to read to input. So I'll start from main program. It is of type void because it does not return any value. Then cout read A and B value. Now cin A and B. So what type of data I'm going to have? What's the data type here? It is of type integer A, B, C. These are the three variables I'm going to use in my program. Then find sum, that is C equal to A plus B. Then cout sum C. Then close my program. Now these are the procedure I'm going to follow while writing my program. So while preparing my documentation, I'm going to represent what are the things I had carried out to complete my program. So, here documentation is nothing but the referential material. By seeing referential material, anyone can very easily identify what are the things are carried out, what are the different kinds of variables are used, and how the calculation parts are carried out, if is there any linking file or if there is any sub file, everything are clearly mentioned in my documentation. So that is the reference material for other programmer. In documentation, we are going to have two types, that is internal documentation and external documentation. Moving further, let's see what is internal documentation. So the internal documentation is also called technical documentation. That means it is going to give the complete information about the what kind of technology being used, what kind of programming language is used, what kind of constructors are used, what are the different semantics are used. It gives complete information about your program. So it is called technical documentation. It is meant for the programmer who may update the program code at the later stage. That means you may get the doubt. That means why I require documentation? Because suppose if you want to modify the existing code, that time I required documentation. That means the other person who may update your existing program, that time we required documentation. That is, it is mainly used by the programmer who may update the code at the later stage. That means if I consider the example what I have taken there, we used to find the sum of two numbers. What I will do, first I'm going to write the documentation for finding sum of two numbers. Later, the third person, that means other programmer, may refer my document to perform the sum of three numbers. What he will do? He is going to make small modification by using my document. So here, internal documentation includes defining meaningful variable names. That means what kind of variable I have used in my program. That information is included in my internal document. Along with that, including comments in the program code. That means after writing each code, what I will do? I'm going to write the comment for each code. Along with that, presenting the program code clearly. That means writing program codes clearly. These are the things are included in my internal documentation. That means the internal documentation includes the complete information about the variable name, comments related to each line, along with that a clear logical code which is related to your program. Moving further, I'm going to have another type, that is external documentation. So here the name itself indicates that it is external to the programmer. That means these kind of documents are used by the user. So then what it is? It is just the user manual. That means after launching any product, if the user want to make use of that product, we want to give the instruction or information about that product that is clearly mentioned in the user manual. So here External documentation is nothing but your user manual. So the program or application is supported with additional textual information about the application. That means once again it is a document that gives additional information about your application. This is useful for the user. At the same time, this is useful for the administrator, and at the same time, the external documents are used by the developer. Moving further, I'm going to have maintenance. Now I have documentation. After documentation, what is my next stage? That is, I want to maintain my program. That means program maintenance means a periodic review of the programs and modification based on the user requirement. Now, dear student, tell me why I want to maintain any product or any program. Because the user interest may change frequently. Now, I want to modify the existing product or program. So how I can able to modify? That is based on the user requirement. And who is responsible for making changes? Once again, the programmer. So here maintenance means it is a periodic review of the program and modification. That means you're going to change your program or product periodically based on the user requirement. The best example you can able to consider your WhatsApp, because each 3 months once or each month once you're going to have update option. Why I need to update my WhatsApp here? Because each time the version of the WhatsApp is going to change. Then why it is going to change? Because of user requirement. So because of user requirement, whatever the modification is done, that should be reflected on the product or program. So here program maintenance means the periodic review of the program, and here the maintenance is continuous task because the user interest or the user requirement may change continuously. For that reason, the maintenance is continuous task. The documentation plays an important role in the program maintenance. That means while modifying existing program, what I required? Once again, I required documentation because I want to change my existing program. That means whatever the modification I'm going to do here, that is purely based on the existing document. In that time, I required documentation. So here documentation plays very important role in the program maintenance. It helps speedy and efficient maintenance. Moving further, I'm going to have programming construct. That means while writing any program, I want to follow certain rules, regulation and procedure. So here a programming construct is a statement in a program. That means while writing any program, I can able to use any kind of programming language. That means I can able to use C, or I can able to use C++, or I can able to use Java or Python or Android. So here selection of the programming language is purely depends on the user. And whatever the statement I'm going to write in my program, that is itself called programming construct. That means a programming construct is nothing but the statement in a program. Here statement means what? Whatever the line I'm going to write in my program, that is itself called statement. So there are three basic programming constant. That means if I consider any programming language, I'm going to have only three basic programming constant, that is sequential constraint, selection constraint, and iteration constraint. Moving further, I'm going to have programming constructs. So what is constructs here? And that means I'm going to construct my program. To construct my program, what are the things I required here? I required sequential construct, or I may use selection construct, or I may use iteration construct. So what is programming construct? That is nothing but the statement or line in a program. That means whatever the program I'm going to write, or whatever the line I'm going to write in my program, that is itself called programming construct. So while writing any program, I can able to use any kind of programming language. That means I can able to use C, or I can able to use C++, or I can able to use Java, or I can able to use Python. Here the selection of the programming language is purely depends on the programmer. That means the programmer is familiar with any one of these programming language. So a programming construct is a statement. So here statement is nothing but the lines. So the program may include 1 line, 10 line, or 50 line, or 5,000 line. So that lines itself called statement. So a programming construct is a statement in a program. And here we are going to have three basic programming constructs. That means if I consider any programming language, I'm going to have only three programming constructs. In that first one, I'm going to have sequential constructs, then I'm going to have selection constructs, then I'm going to have iteration constructs. So in my today's session, I'm just going to deal with only sequential constructs, and the remaining two types are explained in my next session. Moving on to sequential construct. What is sequential construct here? So the program statements are executed one after another in sequence. That means the name itself indicates that it is sequential. That means what is sequential here? One by one execution. That means execute first line, after the completion of first line, go to second line, execute second line, after the completion of second line, go to third line. So this process continues. So here the sequential construct is nothing but the execution of code or line one by another. That means one after another in a sequential manner. So in our sequential constructs, we are going to have three different types. That is input statement, assignment statement, and output statement. That means in my sequential constructs, I'm going to have input statement, assignment statement, and output statement. So dear student, what are the points you have to remember here? I'm going to have only the input statement. I'm going to have only the assignment statement, and I'm going to have only the output statement. So example, for input statement, I'm going to define the variable a, comma b. Along with that, I'm going to specify the data type. For example, it is integer. Then for assignment statement, what I'm going to have? That is C equal to A plus B. That means after adding A and B, whatever the value I'm going to have, I'm going to store that one into the C. So what is C here? Here C is nothing but the variable. Then output statement, that means I'm going to display the output, that is print C. This is output statement. So the sequential construct is nothing but the execution of my program or the statement one after another. And I'm going to have three sequential constructs, that is input statement, assignment statement, as well as output statement. Moving further, at the beginning, I'm going to have input statement. So this is the statement used to input values into the variables from the input device. That means here the name itself indicates that the user is going to feed the data to the computer system by using any kind of input device. So example for input device, that may be your keyboard, mouse, etc. So this is the statement. It is used to input value. So what is input value? That means I'm going to feed the data into the variables from the input device. And the best example here is input A, B, C. So here A is variable name, here B is variable name, and C is also variable name. And where I'm going to feed the data, or how I'm going to feed the data? With the help of keyboard, I'm going to enter. That means I'm going to enter 10 for A, 20 for B, and 30 for C. How I can able to enter here? With the help of keyboard. Moving further, I'm going to have assignment statement. So this is a statement is used to store a value. That means whatever the value you're going to have, suppose if you want to store those value with the help of some other variable, that time you can able to use assignment statement. So this is statement used to store a value in a variable. That means it's mainly used to store the values in a variable. And to represent assignment statement, I'm going to have equal symbol. So this is my assignment symbol. So how I can able to assign then? That means A, I'm going to assign value 10. That means now tell me what is the value of A. Here A holds 10 and it is constant value. That means whatever the value I'm going to assign, that remains constant. Then what is B? Once again, I'm going to assign 20. Now B holds 20. So this is also called assignment statement. And another example here, I have taken C equal to A plus B. That means now I have A value and I have B value. What I will do? I'm going to add A and B together. And whatever the result I'm going to get, I'm going to store those results in my variable C. What is the example? I have 10 plus 20. So after adding 10 plus 20, I'm going to get 30. Now what I will do? I'm going to assign 30 to C. Now what C holds here? C holds the value 30. Moving further, I'm going to have output statement. So this statement is used to display the value of variable on the standard output device. That means the output statement is mainly used to display the value. So what kind of value I'm going to display and where I'm going to display? Here, to display the value, I'm going to have standard output device. That means where I'm going to display? On my monitor. So to display the value, what device I'm going to have? That is standard output device. And the example here is output C. That means now I'm going to display my output on the standard output device. So these are the three different sequential construct I'm going to have. So at the beginning, it is input statement, then assignment statement, then I'm going to have output statement. And suppose if I write any program, then while writing my program, I want to follow all three sequential construct. So dear student, in my today's class, I started with what is documentation, why I require documentation, what is maintenance, then how to write the program, what are the different programming constraints we are going to have. These are the things we studied in my today's session. So dear student, let's meet in my next session with some more information about problem solving methodology. Until then, keep learning and keep watching. Thank you.